what I do for the Post is I explore how new technologies, whether it's software or hardware, are methods and means for us to do storytelling. And so over the last 3 years, I've done a fair amount of exploration. We've explored 360-degree video. We've done some computer graphics-based virtual reality storytelling. And we're really excited and passionate about the possibility of augmented reality storytelling, in part because we think that that's how people have always learned about journalism. That the journalism has always been in the real world, whether we're talking about the radio-based news headlines that you get while you're in your car or on your way, whether we're talking about TV that you often experience with other people, and even which takes place in your physical environment and especially has an exploration paradigm that you choose which stories you want and they're contextualized and you share them with other people. And so for us, augmented reality was a very natural next step. And a lot of what I've heard today fits very much into the kind of evolution that we've seen at the Post. So the first AR stories that we did last year were much more traditional. You had to download a wholly separate app from any of the existing Washington Post apps. You had to have a visual trigger. You really had to be seeking out our journalism. And while they were very immersive stories for the handful of people that looked at them, we're really very much more in the scale business than we are in the talking to 3,000 to 4,000 of our closest friends. And so one of the things that we really wanted to do differently this year is we wanted to explore not only what the technology enabled us to do with augmented reality, but also what kinds of stories fit in augmented reality. So over the course of the next 12 months or so, we're going to do a variety of different types of storytelling. The first story that we've done this year is all about how we tell an architecture critique in AR. We're also going to look at issues of climate change. We're going to look at neuroscience questions. We're going to look at history through objects, all of which will be built into our existing news applications because that's where we have the scale for the audience. So we have hundreds of thousands of people who every day interact with our iOS app. And so that's where we built our first AR experiences. So I want to show you the first one that we've done this year and then talk a little bit about where we're going. All right, so this is the iOS app. If you're familiar, we just added that augmented reality section. And then within that, yep, we're getting there. Within that, this is going to be eventually a landing area for multiple architecture stories. So let's see if the sound works.
These panels cover the soaring ceiling and interior walls of the Elbe Philharmonic Concert Hall. Each of the 10,000 panels is individually designed to fit a precise position in the auditorium, and each one has a unique pattern of peaks and valleys to diffuse the sound. The design team created an algorithm to produce a random and continuous surface. This helps the sound feel warm and enveloping without unwanted echoes or other distracting sonic patterns. The shape of the surface mimics the shape of the building, which sits atop an old warehouse like a giant set of sails catching the wind. It also mimics the ornamentation found in 19th century concert halls, which we now know helps make these traditional spaces sound so lush. The panels, dubbed the white skin, help give this building its reputation for luxury, which has defined the project since it was proposed more than 15 years ago.
So what are we trying to do here? We're trying to do a couple of things. One, it's not that we think we can or should, in AR, replicate Phil's long and very thoughtful critique. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning architecture critic. He actually was our classical music critic before that, so he's uniquely suited to do this review. But we wanted to instead bring in one facet that was really engaging and really compelling, and then allow you to, in essence, take a little bit of the building and bring it into your own space. And so the whole idea was, using the Wikitude framework, could we take those tiles, which make the building so unique, and put them on your own ceiling or your own floor? And so the idea with this series of architecture stories, all of which will be about these billion-dollar-plus buildings, is how can we bring in the most important facet of that story and show it to you using AR. And it's not because we can do AR stories, it's because architecture in particular is a medium that is conducive to AR, because it can give you that sort of virtual feeling within your own space, or it can have a location component. And so as I look around our newsroom, I'm trying to think about who are the teams that have the stories most suited to the kind of augmented reality stories we want to tell. And when are the stories visual enough or have a location component so it makes sense? Earlier today, we heard a lot about the difference between whether you should do AR on a mobile device like a phone or a tablet or a headset. To us, we're fairly platform agnostic. We want to go where the storytelling potential is the greatest, but we especially want to go where there's enough of an audience. So for at least now, for us, iOS and Android on where we have an existing install base makes a lot of sense. Have we explored what the HoloLens could do or some of these other AR-based headsets? Of course, but for now, there's not much scale there. So we'll continue to explore these kinds of AR stories as much as the tools and the technology and the distribution allow. John, I didn't know if you had specific questions.
My question for you is here, you guys have committed to doing some pieces on augmented reality. What are you looking for? Why are you, why is the timing right now? And, is there kind of a build-up on certain themes, or is it just things that catch your attention? And have you seen anything here that sort of resonate or surprise you?
So I think there are a couple of things. One, we're pursuing two tracks. One, we know our audience is incredibly engaged and interested in augmented reality as a topic. And so we've covered it extensively. Part of the reason that I worked with Phil is because one of Phil's, from an audience perspective, most successful stories was when he wrote about Pokemon Go and how people interacted with architecture differently for the first time when they used augmented reality. And it's not about the buildings, obviously, but the way that you use the cities changes when you're playing a game that is location-based and is augmenting the world around you. So we're writing a lot about augmented reality because we know that our audience is interested in and fascinated by some of the new tools and technologies that are out there. We also think it's a really powerful storytelling tool, not only for our editorial teams, but also actually for our branded content. So there is a whole market that's out there for advertisers. In this case, this particular project was sponsored by Audi, who wants to tell AR or AR-related, AR-proximate stories. I would say, of the things that I've seen here, I'm really intrigued by, as a storyteller, some of the ways that the applications that are being built already into augmented reality. I think it's really fascinating to see, especially with the Meta headset, for example, some of the ways that augmented reality can be a collaborative tool, which I don't think we've done nearly enough of.
Can you make sure you mentioned 3 other headsets too?
3 other headsets too. No, I mean, we have already spent a lot of time with the HoloLens and see a lot of value there. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've seen is that there isn't a single mode of working with these, working with the augmented virtual objects in the AR headsets. And I think we see that as a challenge that each time you put on a different headset, have to figure out a different mode of communicating with it. And so I think we'll get there, but we're not really there yet. When you look at this first AR story, one of the big challenges for us was, how do we tell instructions so that not just you, but your grandparents can figure out how to use an augmented reality experience?
So let me ask you this. So like the National Geographic resource, you guys are sitting on a lot of content. And have you thought about the benefit of AR helping to repurpose that content for people to engage as they navigate the world? And is that something that an entrepreneur here might be able to kind of tap into and do something with?
I think National Geographic is in some ways even better suited than we are, but we have started at the Post using AI tools to try to locate as many of our stories as we possibly can with physical addresses, because we believe that a lot of those stories, or some of those stories, may have meaning as you move about your daily environment. The challenge for us is that those stories are so timely for the most part compared to, say, a National Geographic story, where when you pull up an old issue or stumble across an old web link, for National Geographic, those stories are as valid today as they often were when they were published, even if it was decades ago. I think in both cases, the long-tail media is really valuable, and those archives will be incredibly useful when we can figure it out. The challenge is, I think AR, at least right now, is so much more of a visual medium than it is a reading medium as of yet. As screen technology gets better, that may change, that we have to find ways to bring our most visual stories to the front.
Yeah. So I want to say something to the audience. As you guys bump and connect with this guy, I think there's a handful of institutions that if they really go in AR, that can change the whole vector of media. And I think at a time when there's a lot of talk of fake news and what's the future of the medium and 5G is around the corner, I feel like this is a position where a place like you guys could really lead. And so thank you for doing these pieces. I hope you highlight some of the talent here. But I think you guys should find ways to kind of help them kind of accelerate their movement. And I'm in talks with Emilio about doing an AR in action at the Washington Post in the near term. So
Should be
thank you,
fantastic.
Jeremy.
Thank you.